I can still smell it. The heat from the furnace, the weird vapors in the air, that sound of glass clinking. Outside, people whispered about us. They called it alchemy, magic. They thought we were trying to make gold, that we were some kind of mystics. But they had no idea what was really going on in there. They didn't see the truth of our work.
See, on the one hand, you had the myth, this whole idea of magic and secret potions. But the reality, our lab was the complete opposite. It was slow, careful work. It was methodical. It was science. This wasn't about luck or chanting the right words. It was about getting proof you could hold in your hands.
I was lucky enough to be an apprentice to a man named Jabir ibn Hayyan. Much, much later, in the West, I hear they started calling him Geber. But to me, he was just the master. And what he was building in that workshop wasn't just a collection of strange liquids. He was creating a whole new way of looking at the world.
So let me tell you about the very first thing he taught me. It was just one simple rule, but it was everything. It was the heart of all our work, everything we ever did. Before him, you had the Greek philosophers, right? They would just sit around and think about how the world worked. It was all theory. But my master, he was different. He believed you couldn't really know anything just by thinking about it. No, you had to get your hands dirty. You had to touch it, test it, and prove it.
This was his mantra. I swear he drilled it into my head every single day. Perform practical work, he'd tell me. Conduct experiments. We weren't just sinkers sitting in a room. We were doers. We had to prove every single idea with our own two hands.
Okay, but here's the problem. If you're going to conduct experiments, you need tools, right? And the stuff we needed to do our work, well, it just didn't exist. So what did the master do? He invented it. He basically built the entire laboratory from the ground up.
Take the alembic, for example. What a brilliant device. We'd heat up some mixture, and its very essence would rise up as steam. The alembic's funny shape would trap that vapor, cool it down, and then drip, 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 out would come this perfectly pure liquid. This invention, let us separate things in a way nobody had ever dreamed of before. And he didn't stop there, not even close. He created these incredibly sensitive scales that could weigh the tiniest bit of powder. He designed something called the retort, another amazing tool for our work. I mean, our shelves were just packed with glass beakers and flasks of all these new shapes and sizes, each one designed for a specific job. He was literally inventing the modern laboratory. So, now we had the tools. And with those tools, we started to find secrets. Secrets that were hidden inside everyday things. We weren't just cleaning up substances anymore. We were actually making brand new ones. Oh man, I'll never forget the first time he showed me. He'd created these liquids. They could burn right through a piece of cloth. They'd sizzle and smoke if they touched metal. This was stuff with some serious power, stuff the world had never, ever seen before. He taught me how to distill different kinds of salts and minerals together to make these wild new liquids. The first one was nitric acid, a liquid that could actually dissolve solid silver. Then, from plain old salt, he managed to create hydrochloric acid. And finally, the most powerful one of all, sulfuric acid. To us, they were just these amazing, almost magical discoveries. We had absolutely no idea that, hundreds of years later, these three acids would be the foundation of the entire modern chemical industry. But just finding new things, that wasn't enough for the master. He had this deep need to understand them, to organize everything. He wanted to find the pattern, to bring some kind of order to the chaos of the world. So way before anyone had even thought of a periodic table, my master made his own system to classify everything. He sorted substances into three big groups. First, you had your metals. Shiny things you could hammer into different shapes. Then you had the non-metals, dull stuff that would just shatter. And then there was this third really cool category, the spirits. These were the things we could turn into vapor and capture with the alembic. It was the very first attempt to draw a map of matter itself. Pretty revolutionary stuff. Looking back on everything we did in that lab, all the things he taught me, it's so clear now. The people who wrote the history books way in the future, they got it right. They gave him a title that he absolutely earned. So why the father of chemistry? Well, it's simple, really. It's because he was the one who said knowledge comes from doing, not just from thinking. It's because he literally invented the tools to do the work. And it's because with those tools, he found the very building blocks that all of chemistry, for centuries to come, would be based on.
He didn't just walk down the path, he built it.
So all that work we did in that hot, smoky lab back in the 8th century, it wasn't just some dusty, forgotten story. It was the foundation. It was the solid stone that the entire massive building of modern science was built on top of.
It makes you think, doesn't it? My master's story was almost completely lost, buried under all those myths about magic. It just makes you wonder, whose story has history forgotten next?